This is VSiN PrimeTime. Live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We are off and running on a Wednesday evening alongside Jonathan Von Tobel. I am Tim Murray. We are 25 hours away from the NFL draft. We have 3 NBA playoff games, 3 Stanley Cup playoff games this evening. We were talking about it on Monday night here on the show, and I'm sure you guys were doing the same yesterday, JVT. Damn, this is a good week, man. A lot of news and notes today for the NFL draft, which we'll get to, and I'm sure you're in a bit of heaven with the NBA playoffs rolling along.
Nah, not really.
Come on, baby, Kawhi Leonard, get it rolling.
That's what I was going to reference, which is tomorrow it's back, which is 2 hours of me just biting my nails. Those games have not been fun to watch, only because they have been very stressful and close. So, yes, I have enjoyed this postseason. It's been pretty solid for the most part. We've had some good games. Yesterday sucked very much, so we'll see if maybe the contest will get a little bit better.
Oh, what'd you have in the contest yesterday?
Yesterday it was a split. Yesterday, what was the first game? Thunder, minus 14.5, got there and lost with the Timberwolves, plus 5.5. So ended up splitting the 2 plays. I'm now 6-2. Do have 2 plays later tonight.
Coming up in just a little bit, the Boston Celtics will be back on the floor against the Orlando Magic. News here, this is not our game of the night, which we will get to in a matter of moments, but line move here because of, well, the news that came out. Jason Tatum is out tonight for the Boston Celtics. So, JVT, what do you make of this number? Also, this total down to 196.5 for Orlando and the Boston Celtics. Unders have been the play so far in the NBA postseason.
Yeah, they have been, and I think in this series it is apt to make it this low. As we have seen, look, this is a very good defensive team in the Orlando Magic. They're the better defensive team of the two. I don't think there's really any question about it at this point right now. It's just whether or not they can do anything on offense. This is also a very slow-paced game in Game 1. 85 possessions in that game in non-garbage time, and that excluded just about a minute and 14 seconds of action. So you can see a game with less than 90 possessions the first time around. Hardly see a scenario where this thing's going to speed up exponentially here today, and you're going to add like 20 possessions to a game. This is going to be a slow contest. You're not going to have Jason Tatum out there. You're going to get 2 good defensive teams. You're going to get an offensively challenged group. I actually think still at this point, I mean, if you haven't gotten in, but it's going to be under or nothing here in a game like this. This could be a pretty ugly affair between these two, especially without Tatum on the floor. So very strong lean to the under at this point right now, but hard to do it when we opened at 201.5. Right. 199 was available for a while. Now it's down to 196 in some spots, and it continues to head in that direction. A couple of offshore shops, 196 shaded to the under, so I very much lean in that direction. And with such a low total, do gravitate toward taking 10. But again, could have gotten 12.5. That was sitting out there for a while.
Betting splits over at vsin.com. 77% of bets and 77% of the handle at DraftKings on the over in this one. And 67% of the bets, 61% of the money on the Boston Celtics. So this game will tip off here in just a matter of moments. On the ice, JVT, we get 3 games as mentioned this evening and in the nation's capital, while my Washington Nationals are putting a hurting on the Baltimore Orioles with 2 bombs in the first inning. James Wood and Josh Bell both going yard against the Orioles. The Washington Capitals off an overtime winner that made Matt Eubanks almost have a heart attack as he had the Capitals to close out a moneyline parlay. They were up 2-0. I think they were as high as like minus 2,000 on the money line. They blew that lead, but Alex Ovechkin in overtime gets the victory, first ever game winner in overtime for Ovi. Minus 170 is the number for the Washington Capitals on the money line, as this number has sunk from as high as, I believe, minus $2. So some money coming in on the Canadians, and the old zigzag theory believed, at least from the betting public. So Washington and Montreal will get going here in just a matter of moments there with the Caps up 1-0 in that series.
I think there's a strong argument to be made that it's not the zigzag you're playing, but that you look at some of my process for handicapping the hockey playoffs, because I love postseason betting, because especially in sports where there's series, you can go back to a matchup, you can see what's going on, they're going to play each other again. And this angle worked. I talked about this with Paul the other day on Follow the Money with the Dallas and Colorado series, where if you actually looked at the even strength numbers for that first game, you could have made an argument that Dallas played Colorado very tightly, although the final score in Game 1 was not the case. Well, what happened? We saw them in a much tighter game, of course, and pulling that off against the Avalanche Game 2. And I think that when you look at this series, you could make the case in terms of overall shot share in that first game. in favor of the Washington Nationals, of the Nationals. And by the way, I meant to say Canadiens. I'm talking too fast. In favor of the Canadiens in that game at even strength. Expected goals for in favor of the Canadiens at even strength as well. If you kind of sift through the numbers that I like to look for, by the way, Canadiens actually double up the Capitals in terms of high danger chances almost too. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, I'd be inclined to think that Canadians can put up a little bit of a better fight here again and maybe even pull this off.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. And if you watched the third period on, I know the Caps got the victory in overtime with Alex Ovechkin scoring that goal. Logan Thompson was getting peppered, as to your point, throughout that game, and they came back and ultimately got it. And, you talk to some of the sharper hockey handicappers out there, and despite their record, Washington, and you just look at the odds market, this is not a team that is believed to be a realistic threat to win the Stanley Cup despite being the top dog in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see what happens here this evening as that game about to get underway. Also getting underway here, as mentioned, we got the Boston Celtics and the Orlando Magic. We will be keeping close eyes on that one, JVT, and it looks like a couple of shops, including the Westgate Superbook, the hook is gone, now down to 10. So this is going to go off. Boston minus 10 against the Orlando Magic. Once again, as many of you know, but worth repeating, Jason Tatum out tonight for the Boston Celtics. How would you, you mentioned it, under would probably be the look for you right now as we look at this game from an in-game standpoint. What would be your initial feel? Do you look to maybe get Boston at a cheap price, see how Orlando comes out? What's your initial kind of gut feel of what to look for from an in-game perspective in this one?
I'm always inclined to see if a big favorite can get off to a slow start and get a cheap number. So I think that's what you're hoping for. Orlando comes out, maybe makes this tight throughout the first half, and you get something much cheaper on the number right now with the Boston Celtics. And there you go. Kristaps Porzingis smokes a layup, and it's back the other way, and the Magic are going to, nope, another smoked layup.
Good start for the under.
Come on now. There you go.
2 missed layups there. Good start for the under. Total out to 198.5. We're going to get a couple of buckets here in just a matter of moments. All right, a lot to get to here today. Zach Cohen going to join us bottom of the hour. Lots of NFL draft talk. I also put together a little mock draft. We've got some interesting markets that you and I want to hit on and go through just scenarios that are out there. You put together a mock draft? I did.
Okay.
We're going to put it up on VSiN.com here.
Is this going to be your only one?
Yeah.
Or are you going to, like last year, chicken out and then put up a second one the day of the draft?
How is that chickening out when you get a little bit more information?
No, but be like our buddy Sean over there on the Sports Gambling Podcast. He always puts out one mock draft every single time. That's it. Sticks to his guns.
All right. No, this will be it. This took me way too long, and
mock drafts are actually, they're very time consuming.
This will be it, and then you go through them. You're like, oh my god, I forgot this guy, and then I had to go back and add someone in there. So here's a quick glimpse at it. I have Cam Ward going 9th. No, just kidding. So we'll run through my only mock draft attempt a little bit later on here in the show.
I'm already disappointed with you.
What'd you disappoint in?
I mean, I just 1, 2, 3, 4.
I did no trades.
Come on, cookie cutter 1, 2, 3, 4.
So
trades are fine. I agree with you. You can't do that.
Go over to VSiN.com. I'll real quickly.
The cookie cutter 1,
Number
2, 3,
4,
4.
Will Campbell. What did I put on the website?
Oh, you wrote them up each one? Okay, good.
I don't believe this is going to be as easy as maybe some people think it is. I think we could see the Patriots trade out at 4. What I also think is, and I'll dive into this a little bit later, but I'll just stick with 4. We had Tony Pauline on Monday night. He said maybe a curveball comes, maybe it's Jalen Walker at 4. What I think, and you can't predict trades, I mean, I guess you could if you want. I think what is possible is this Bears steam of them wanting Ashton Genty. I think it could be real, and they could go up to 4. And if you're the New England Patriots at 10, knowing the need that they have at offensive line, I think you're going to be able to get a Membo or a Kelvin Banks at 10. So I think that's certainly a possibility. So I think 4 is where the draft starts, and that's my initial thought process there. We'll dive into a couple more else, but yeah. What about 6? Raiders taking Jalen Walker. I think I'm the only one out there in the old mock draft world that has that. I'll probably be wrong.
Yeah, I actually I'm hoping it's the defensive tackle whose the name escapes me.
Mason Graham.
Yeah, Mason Graham. So we'll see if that's the case. Is he in your top?
I dropped him to 13.
Okay, look at that. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Ooh, don't like that. I do have plus 135 on the Dolphins draft an offensive lineman.
Woo! You just got a text message.
So
one of us got a text message.
I deny this mock draft.
All right, we'll dive into my mock draft a little bit later on in the show. Maybe some bets that are out there as well. But let's get to, before we hit our first break, the game of the night.
The lights are on and the stakes are high. It's the primetime game of the night.
All right, Mr. Von Tobel, 9:30 Eastern, the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. Woo! We've seen a movement here.
I can't do this.
Houston out to a 4-point favorite against the Golden State Warriors.
And why, Tim? Tell me why.
Zigzag!
Yep, because they lost. I can't. And I told Gil this morning when I was on the numbers game. We have our contest going on at the website of VSiN.com. And I'm off to a good start, but that is just what it is, a start. And it's because I'm going to get my teeth kicked in. Why? I am going to play against this. I think this is flatly ridiculous. I took 3, and it is up to 4. We are moving. Look, think about this. This was a 1.5-point spread at close in game 1. The only reason we are at 4 is because they lost. They were down by 20 at one point, and the reason why we have decided, because keep in mind, this number tells you that Houston is a better team than the Golden State Warriors. That's exactly what this number says. And the only reason we're here is because they lost game 1. I can't do it. It is a play of principle. I am on the Warriors today. I will go down with the ship. They'll get smoked, I'm sure. But I just cannot, in good conscience, go out there and say 4 is the number. Lay it because the Rockets lost in game 1.
I didn't think we'd get it this early. John Von triggered already. Houston.
Don't you think so? It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Could it happen? Sure, it certainly could happen. Do I think it'll happen? No, I don't. That's JVT. I'm Tim Murray. What do you say we talk more about this? Get you updated on Orlando and Boston. We're up and running. It's VSiN PrimeTime.
This is VSiN Primetime on VSiN, the sports betting network.
It is VSiN Primetime here on this lovely NFL Draft Eve. We've got 3 NBA playoff games, 3 hockey games here this evening. We'll talk with Zachary Cohen coming up bottom of the hour. We'll get his thoughts on the 2 games still to tip off, and our game of the night, the VSiN Primetime game of the night. Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets. Rockets -4, JVT.
I will add that we have our contest. You go to VSiN.com. You can check it out. If you're a pro subscriber, you see all the picks and everything like that. Picks are also on the pro picks page, too, so you get a sense of it, their standings, all that good stuff. We have 8 people that are involved in this game, Warriors and Rockets. I, much like Jon Snow in the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones, am a lone man. I am by myself on the Houston Rockets. I don't know if you get that reference. Or excuse me, on the Golden State Warriors. Freudian slip.
It's the GIF, right?
Yes, yeah. So I am by myself.
How did you do in that battle?
I don't remember, although I will say cinematography, the cinematography of that is very good. You should actually just look it up because there is a very intense scene in which they do like a realistic cavalry charge. So it's literally just masses of horses running into each other. And at one point, he gets so swamped in this mass of bodies. Like, it's actually a pretty cool visual scene. You could look it up and appreciate it, at least.
So let me ask you this. As we're watching Boston and Orlando.
I think they won overall.
10-8 to score. 10-8 is the score. The Boston Celtics with the lead. Live line, as we'll keep you updated right now, Boston -10.5, which is where we were.
Total's down to 190.5.
You mentioned it. This looked like an under game. You weren't getting the best of the number, but already down to 190.5. How worried, if you have a Celtic future, if you have anything wrapped up with Boston, does this Tatum, was it thumb? Does this concern?
Wrist?
Is it wrist or thumb?
Well, I'll double check.
But whatever
ails him.
Does this concern you moving forward, or is this just Boston being extra cautious against what seems to be overmatched Orlando team?
No, I don't think you're too worried. This team is deep enough to overcome this. As we saw last year, Kristaps Porzingis was not available for a vast majority of their playoff run, and last time I checked, they are the reigning champions in the association. I think they're going to be fine. I think Orlando is limited enough on offense that you're not going to feel too worried about whether or not Tatum is going to be available to you. And some of the numbers dictate, too, as a very deep team, what this looks like overall. When Tatum was off the floor in the regular season, they outscored opponents by 8.7 points per 100 possessions. Their most used lineup with Jason Tatum at a plus 13.4 net rating. In other words, this is a really good team. So Tatum is a very good player, but this, and in a series like this, the impact is not as much. We talked about this with Jeff Sherman yesterday on the program about how even from a point spread perspective, in a vacuum, a player like Tatum you would think is worth more. This was 12, and it went down to 10.5.
Right.
And then today we saw a half-blind move in favor of the Magic that closed it at 10. A player like that should not be worth only 2 points, but it's because of the players around him why he's not worth that much. So I think they're going to be fine.
We'll talk more about it with Zach Cohen, but I want to get your initial thoughts. Coming up bottom of the hour, we've got Miami and Cleveland. No zigzag thought here. Now, the team that lost is on the road in Miami, so maybe game 3 is when you maybe get, that overinflated side. So this game closed on Sunday, 12.5 in favor of Cleveland. Cleveland went out 121 to 100. Overhit in that game. We've seen a little bit of under money come in. Total sits at 213.5. Actually, DraftKings sits at 212. This closed at 215.5. Any thoughts on what to expect tonight between Miami and Cleveland after Cleveland took the first one by 21?
I'm just going to be curious to see whether or not Miami has an answer for Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and the way that they were playing there in that game. Donovan Mitchell ends up going for 29 points on 11 of 19 shooting. Darius Garland has 27 points on 10 of 17 shooting. I thought observationally it looked like as I've said here for a couple of days, it looked like the Cavaliers were touching paint on every possession, right? Just like dribble drive to the basket, dribble drive to the basket, dribble drive to the basket. And there was not that much resistance. And whether they were finishing in the paint or kicking it out to open shooters, I just wonder if this is going to change here and if Miami's going to do something like play a lot more zone in this. Remember, Miami in the regular season, highest percentage of defensive possessions playing a zone defense. It was like 14.6% was the exact number. And usually they'll throw it out there here and there, right? They'll play it coming out of a timeout or doing something like that. But I do wonder if maybe you start to see more possessions of just playing zone defense to try to stymie the fact they don't really have any on-ball defenders for either Garland or Mitchell. The problem, though, Tim, is Cleveland's a good enough shooting team that they can break them out of it. They also, as you know, as a versatile big man yourself who has maybe seen a zone defense or two, if you've got a big man who can sit in the middle of the zone and pass out of it, do whatever, if you get the ball inside to him, you can break it too. And guess what? They've got a versatile big guy and Evan Mobley to be able to do that too. So I just think it's a bad matchup for Miami. The way that I keep saying it is, look, Spoelstra is such a good coach that maybe he puts something together with duct tape and bubble gum that they can cover one of these games. But I think this is a pretty short series, and I'm not rushing to grab 12 with Miami just because they lost last time, because the inability to guard both Garland and Mitchell is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and I'm not going to compare this to a 51-point whooping that the Grizzlies took in Game 1, but I felt like yesterday I was like, I could see them being a little bit more competitive, but I'm not racing to take the 14.5.
And we should be fair. Look, they were inside of the number a vast majority of the
right.
game. Like it's not like, to your point, like yesterday, for example. Yesterday, Oklahoma City was covering pretty much most of that game if you were watching it. There were a few times where the Grizzlies would get it to like dip down to 9 or dip down to 8, but then immediately the Thunder would put the foot on the gas and boom, 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 it was back out to 17-18. The Cleveland wasn't like that. Cleveland, it was like a 7 or 8 point game a vast majority of the time. Now, they kept them at arm's length the whole time, but it wasn't until the last few minutes then you saw Cleveland really start to put it on them, and Miami kind of let go of the rope. So I give them credit there, and I think maybe that's why you see some backing here, and then outside of just the blind zigzag play as well. But I do understand it to an extent, but I also don't think that they are going to be able to contain either Garland or Mitchell, and I think that leads to this potentially being a game in which Cleveland can cover.
So I want to get back to our primetime game of the night, and that's Golden State and Houston. You mentioned in the contest, which you can get over at VSiN.com/picks, you are the only brave soul to take the Golden State Warriors, taking the 4. That's where the market sits. This game, if you recall, on Sunday closed 1.5. Golden State went out 195-85. So you've seen a big adjustment there. I want to point you towards the total. Yeah. 95-85 was the final score. Obviously, if you had the under, congratulations. That's an easy winner when the total closed at 213 and it lands with 180 points. JVT, we've seen an adjustment here of 8.5 points. At some shops, 9 points. One game, no injuries of note, 9 points in the total. So I know that you were John Von Trigger just a moment ago from the side. What about this total? Is this too much? Or did you see from that game one, this is going to be a pretty under series?
No, like this I at least understand, right? So to invoke the side one more time to illustrate the point for the total, you watched the Warriors go up by 20 points in that game against Houston, right? They were whooping that team. And then eventually Houston's defense kind of locks them up. The offense looks pretty poor for a Golden State, and they get back into it, but never really are in the game, right? There's a stretch where I think they make it down to 2 and whatever. Whole point is that they were never really covering that game, never really into it. But the total, that thing was dead under, and it looked like a thing that was going to be incorrect. They only had 88 possessions in that game on Sunday. That is a series that is going to play to that point. You also have a Houston offense, which is, of these playoff teams, the worst when it comes to half-court offensive efficiency from the regular season. So that's a factor that plays into it. You have 2 very good defensive teams. That is a factor that plays into it where I can at least get, and I think the adjustment is warranted, that you're going to move the total. And, you use a closing number. Think about where it opened. It was 216.5 at the open, and we're down to this point where it's down to 204.5. So, again, I'm not great at math on the fly, as we have learned with humans, but that's a 12-point adjustment. That's a pretty strong adjustment from the open of game 1 to where we're at here. I think you make the argument that you potentially go over, but at the same time, I at least haven't seen the signs in the first game that I saw with the side, and that's what makes me kind of stay back here, at least from a total standpoint. But that's huge. It's massive.
Quick update from Boston, 17-16 right now. The Orlando Magic with a 1-point lead over the Boston Celtics. So that total is down to 193.5. Has gone up a little bit from last time we checked at 190.5, but did close at 199.5. Spread right now 8.5 in favor of the Boston Celtics, who trail by 1 with Jason Tatum sidelined tonight with that. Was it wrist? It was a wrist, right?
You know what? I forgot to look it up.
But worth noting, unders 10-3 so far in this postseason.
Where is your distal radius bone?
That let me see. I got to read while I pretend to know the answer to that. Hey, the NFL Draft is one of the few betting events where research beats reputation, and the VSiN Pro helps you cash in right now. Get VSiN Pro access through August 1st for just $59, a full summer of sharp betting insights at half the regular price. With VSiN Pro, you'll get our daily best bets, which includes sharp insight into NFL draft props, real-time betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 video access on the VSiN Watch app, full access to VSiN.com's analytics, betting trends, and expert breakdowns. Sign up, VSiN.com/subscribe, VSIN.com/subscribe. Where's the bone?
The distal radius, the lower end of the radius bone, located in the forearm on the thumb side. It forms the top part of the wrist. It is also the most frequently fractured bone in the body.
Huh.
How about that?
Thumb or wrist?
That's according to AI. It's wrist. Yeah,
wrist. I just heard thumb.
Yeah. Close. It's on the thumb side, so it's right here.
Zachary Cohen, you think he's ever broken his wrist? We'll ask him. Or that bone that you were just talking about.
Distal radius.
This is VSiN Primetime on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It is VSiN Primetime here on a busy Wednesday evening. Just a reminder for those of you listening in the state of Nevada, and I think some other states as well, draft betting will close in 30 minutes.
Okay, I got to get this
in Nevada. So you got another bet you're going to add?
I kind of want to add Raiders to draft a defensive back.
Ooh, okay. We will discuss a little bit more draft, and I added another bet to my portfolio, and we will get to a couple of bets that I do like coming up in 15 minutes. But let's talk a little more NBA as we have a game starting momentarily in the land. Miami taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Zachary Cohen joins us right now, courtesy of our progressive guest line. Follow him on social media at Betting on X. Zach, you wrote up this game for VSiN.com. Miami at Cleveland. Right now, market sitting 213, 213.5 with the spread at 12. So no real movement from what we saw in Game 1 on Sunday, a 121-100 victory for Cleveland. How are you looking to attack this game?
Yeah, so I have a side and a player prop in this game. The side is Miami plus 12.5. I just think that there's a lot better things that they could do with Tyler Hero in Game 2 that we didn't see in Game 1. I thought he shot the ball really poorly, and it's not really a matchup that I think is too concerning for him. I know Cleveland is a tough team to play against, but that's really because of their offense. They're not a team that I really trust to defend the perimeter night in, night out. I think the Hero can have success against them, which he did in one of the 2 regular season games he played against them. He absolutely lit them up. So I just think a lot of this is going to be positive regression for Hero. I also just don't think they're going to be able to get away with playing Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome big minutes the way that they did in game one against a coach like Eric Spoelstra, who is so good at making adjustments. I think that Miami is going to do a much better job of attacking the basket when those guys are on the court. And I do think that defensively, the Heat are going to be a lot better than they were in that game. Since March 1st, Miami's been a top 10 team in the league in adjusted defensive rating. Cleveland, obviously a great offensive team, but I'm not sure they're, 140 points per 100 possessions good against a really good defense. So I think this will be a closer game.
Zach, Donovan Mitchell, I thought it was interesting, as I kept telling Tim here, they were touching paint the whole game, right? Just driving, getting in, either getting to the rim or kicking it out. Do you think they can do that again? And what do you expect for him after a big day on Sunday?
I really don't think so. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for them to score. I mean, I don't think Miami's going to shut them down. I think Cleveland's offense is just too good, and I do see this being, a 4-0 or a 4-1 series. But I think that the Heat can keep these games from being blowouts. Like, game one was a 21-point game. I could see this being, 7 or 8, which is why I took the 12.5. And I do think that Davion Mitchell is going to have over 6.5 assists. That was the other play I had in this game. Just been doing a really good job of distributing the ball. Ever since getting to Miami, really, he's gone over 6.5 assists in 10 of his last 14 games. He had 20 potential assists in game one, just setting a lot of guys up for good shots. And I think that's going to continue. Like I said, I'm not a big believer in the Cavaliers defense. So I think that there are opportunities out there for players to put up big numbers.
All right. So this general question will set up the game later this evening. It is our VSiN Primetime Game of the Night. Zigzag theory, how do you handle it? What do you do? Because we see a lot of really inflated numbers based off of a previous result. We have one tonight. Rockets are up to 4 against the Golden State Warriors after game one. But just in general, are you zigzag better? How do you handle these inflated lines after results for the game one, game two, and there's previous results in general?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a zigzag better in the sense that I'm willing to lay big numbers with the team that needs a win. I think I was on the Lakers as part of a money line parlay last night, but I did not understand, the idea of them being a 6-point favorite after having been a 4-point favorite in a game they got blown out in game one. Yeah. I know that's what you're getting at with the next game, where I don't really see why the Rockets are -4, but I did take Houston on the money line at -155 as a personal play that I gave out at VSiN.com. I also gave them out at -3 for the website. I do think that, it's a little off with -4, but I think Houston's bound to bounce back after that game. I know that, it was ugly there for a half, but I thought that Houston did a much better job of attacking the rim in the second half. I think there's a lot of positive regression coming for them as shooters. I don't think we're going to see Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green struggle, to shoot, at least to the extent that they did in game one. And I do think that 11 for 20 from the free throw line, that's not something I see continuing moving forward. And I also think, Butler and Curry are going to slow down a little bit. I don't see those two, they lit it up in game one. They were unguardable, both of them. I think we're going to see some games where Curry struggles in this series. And I also don't see Brandon Pajemski being, the swing player in a road game again. He was so good in game one, put up, some really good stat line there and just made all the right plays. But I don't think that's going to happen again in game two. I think Houston is good enough to win this game at home and even up the series.
Pajemski, to put some numbers behind that, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists on 5 of 13 shooting in that game against Houston.
Zachary Cohen joining us here, courtesy of our progressive guest line. Check out his write-ups over at VSiN.com. All his plays, VSiN.com/picks. We haven't talked about it yet, about what we saw last night between the Lakers and T-Wolves. Looking ahead, they will get back out there, I believe, on Friday night. Right now, T-Wolves, right now in the market, sitting as a 3.5 point favorite for that Friday night tilt in the Twin Cities. Did you have a big takeaway from that 94-85 win you mentioned? And I was with you. I had a moneyline parlay, Pacers and Lakers last night, Zach. So I didn't agree with the line movement. It was an ugly game from both sides shooting. What did you take away from yesterday's Lakers T-Wolves game and anything you're looking to spin forward to Friday night?
Yeah, I'm not taking away too much, honestly. I just thought it was a desperation spot for Los Angeles. I do think this is a series that these are two very evenly matched teams. I didn't expect Minnesota to go up 2-0 and win 2 games in Los Angeles. I think that the Timberwolves are in a really good spot in this series. I liked them, at plus 166 before the series started. I have a few futures on them to win the Western Conference. I still feel really good about them winning this series based on what we've seen so far. Obviously, game 2 got away from them, but I just kind of think that they're a little bit overwhelming in terms of just athleticism and size I think that Gobert's, it's being a little bit overrated how little he can guard on the perimeter. I think he's better than people think at doing that. And I do think that at some point we're going to need to see some consistency out of Jackson Hayes for the Lakers to win this series. I just don't think, them going small ball is, the big win for them that people think against the Timberwolves, who have, Naz Reid and Julius Randle as really good small ball bigs, and Jaden McDaniels, when he's knocking down shots, is a really good, lengthy wing on both ends of the floor. I just kind of think the Timberwolves are a little bit more talented than they are. All
right, let's go to tomorrow. I am very excited for not the Clippers and the Nuggets.
I was going to say, you are not excited for the Clippers.
No, not at all. That series is very stressful. What do we make of the Pistons going back home and taking on the Knicks? I think the Knicks are in trouble, Zach. I don't know what you think, but this number was picked. It's now 1.5 in favor of New York with a total of 214.5.
I kind of think the Knicks are going to get back on track. I mean, this is one of the series where I probably leaned under 5.5, thinking that the Knicks would win in 5 or fewer games, but I backed off of it because I just have not been that high on the Knicks all season long. But I do think if they kind of spread things out a little bit offensively, don't play as much iso ball with Jalen Brunson, they're going to find a way to win this series. I just think that Detroit is lacking shot creators. I know that it has looked good so far with kind of the role players stepping up and playing well. We've seen some Tobias Harris moments. We've seen some Malik Beasley. I just don't think there's any consistency there outside of Cade Cunningham. And I think at some point that's going to catch up to them. So I think the Knicks are going to win one of these next 2 games in Detroit. I just don't know which one it's going to be. I probably will be on the Knicks, though. It's such a small number.
All right. Well, Zach, you know that JVT won't talk about it, so we'll talk about it. Clippers and Nuggets. I've got a series play on the Clippers. I think a lot of us did at a plus price before the series started. Came away after the Game 1 loss. Wasn't too worried. I took the Clippers in Game 2. Kawhi was phenomenal. Now, Clippers,
that doesn't even give it justice.
I mean, what's better than phenomenal?
He was the best player in the world for a full game. He was stupendous, spectacular.
15 of 19, 11 of 12 from inside the arc. Every pull-up jumper, you knew what was going in.
I said it on Twitter, Zach, and we'll give you the floor here. I have seen 2 games that come to mind for Kawhi Leonard in a Clippers uniform. It was Game 6 against the Dallas Mavericks. They go on the road. They're down 3-2. He scores like 40 points. It was absolutely incredible.
Were we hosting together that night?
Grabs him by the collar and skips him. No, I was not. I know exactly where I was watching that thing. And then, of course, I actually go back to there's a couple of games, but that Game 1 against your Suns a couple of years ago where they went to Phoenix and he was the best player on the floor. What do you make of that performance? What do you make of this Clippers team through 2 games?
Yeah, I think it was unbelievable. Like, it is hard to do it justice by saying words. I think that maybe saying he was possessed by the very best of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant is the best way to do it. He was unbelievable in that game. And I do think that the Clippers are in very good shape. I would take them, minus 5.5 if I had to. Ooh. I have enough futures on it that I'm probably going to lay off. I have plus 120 to win the series. I have the Clippers to win the West and the Clippers to win the NBA title. So already very invested in Los Angeles. Don't want to add more. But I said it to you. I said it on VSiN.com. I don't think Russell Westbrook's going to continue making 3-pointers. They're going to let him shoot him. I don't think he's going to make them. I'm going to triple down on that heading into Game 3. It's not going to happen again. I just would be stunned if he just continues to beat him.
That final possession of Game 1 in regulation where they let him take that 3, that was the right thing to do. Vast majority of the time, he's not hitting that shot. I would agree with your sentiment there.
Zach, always appreciate
I was going to say, Zoo's doing such a good job on Joker. It's unbelievable to watch.
Kind of like the scene in Dumb and Dumber. Well, what if they shot me in the head? That's a risk we were willing to take.
And he's got him flopping, Zach. Zoo's in his head. He's in his head. He can't stop flopping around. Let's go. Play some basketball, buddy. Come on.
The JVT Clippers Hour coming up in just a little bit. Zach, always appreciate it.
Don't let him get hot, buddy. Don't let him get hot.
Thank you, guys.
Gonna torch that. Imagine for a moment the Clippers win tomorrow night, and at the 14th pick, somehow, some way, Tyler Warren goes to the Indianapolis Colts.
I don't care about that.
No. We'll talk some draft.
Take Shador.
This is VSiN PrimeTime on VSiN, the sports betting network.
JVT's has been doing laps around the studio after talking about the Clippers. What was the deal that our friend Chris Massaro said if the Clippers make the Western Conference Finals?
Now, there is some wording that I do believe I would have to take to a lawyer. Chris Massaro, a professional bettor who is frequently on the program, did say that, and this was during the regular season, like the last 3 or 4 games, if the Thunder and the Clippers are to meet with the berth in the finals on the line, he would take me.
Oh.
In other words, if they were to meet in the Western Conference Finals, remember at that point the seeding was all over the place. Obviously,
it can't happen.
That is not going to be the case. They will move on to take on, if they do move on, to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I do wonder if that deal stands, if I get to go to a Western Conference semifinal series, or if it will be a Western Conference Finals series, regardless of the opponent. So you have to, my lawyer has been spoken to.
They'll be looking at the contracts and all of the specifics there. Still haven't been to Intuit Dome, have you?
No, I have not. I am eligible to sit at the wall. Remember, you do have to have certain parameters. You have to be subscribed to Clipper Vision, which I am. That's essentially like the pass to watch all the games because we get blacked out here. So I do have that. And there's one more thing that I do have. I think it's like sign up for the newsletter or whatever BS. So Chuck, I'm coming, baby.
Is that where you want to sit?
Chuck the Condor. Sure, why not? I just want to go to the building. Almost everybody says that this building is absolutely stupendous. There's nobody that has said a terrible thing about it. Even we saw earlier today, I don't know if you saw this clip. This very much bothered me. I don't like the accusations. David Adelman, the interim coach for the Denver Nuggets, was waxing poetic about the building, but then let it slip in. He was like, and they pump in crowd noise to the building. But it's a great building. And I was like, whoa. The LA Clipper faithful are strong, my friend. It's not fake crowd noise. Although I am now.
Are you fully anticipating, at what point are you just fully anticipating a disaster to happen to the Clippers?
Oh, like right now. Like every moment that passes. Well, look, as somebody said, and
Kawhi Leonard stepped off curb, broke foot.
Well, this is, and to be honest with you, I don't know why I say to be honest with you. I hate when people do that. It's like, of course I'm going to say.
Yeah, say TBH.
Yeah. What makes Kawhi's performance, at least for me, and I think a vast majority of basketball fans, what makes his performance in Game 2 so incredible, and which is why our audience on Twitter likes to give me crap for it or whatever it is, that game right there and these last few games are the reason why I and others have constantly believed in this team. Because when he is healthy, they are among the best teams in the NBA. You see what he's actually capable of. Every metric points to when he's out there. And as I like to point out, I was on with Dustin and Patrick last week, and Dustin presented the question to me as, well, aren't they just going to be a disappointment again? I said, well, hold on. You tell me when they've disappointed, what has happened. And I presented it like that, and he didn't really know where I was going. And I was like, the point there is they've never really disappointed because they haven't lost a series with Kawhi on the floor since the bubble.
I was going to say, the bubble was disappointing.
I was going to say, since the bubble. That was the only time. But every other series in which they have lost, Kawhi has been injured in those series. And so that's like my whole premise here is just like what this team is at the peak of its powers with Kawhi Leonard playing healthy is a very formidable team. And I think that goes back to why that Game 2 was so incredible, because it's been so long since we've seen Kawhi move like that, play like that, be healthy like that. And I really do hope, I don't care if they get eliminated, you just hope he can finish the series because we as basketball fans deserve to watch him play.
It certainly did start a lengthy conversation and just a what if Kawhi Leonard never.
You and I said, I keep going. You watched it.
I was here.
You and I were together for a vast majority of that series against the Utah Jazz in the Western Conference semifinals, where they won that series. And he got injured near the tail end of that series, and they went to the Western Conference Finals and lost to the Suns. They would have won the NBA Finals that year had he had stayed healthy. They were great that year. The bubble year, they would have won the NBA Finals that year had they at least not been disappointing. But we'll see what happens. But it's at least cool to see that he's healthy, and we'll see what he is.
And that performance, and we'll get into it certainly as the show goes on. But I do want to hit on a couple of best bets. If you are in a state that has draft bets come down 24 hours prior to the NFL draft, you've only got 10 minutes to place a couple bets. So
it reminds me. Okay,
we've got a couple of bets. While you place that bet, I talked about this with Mitch and Paul just a couple hours ago. One bet that I do think, and now it's been priced a little bit now. MGM has moved. DraftKings has moved. If you're in Nevada, which I know is a small sample, limited.
It's been pulled down.
Which one?
MGM does not have draft bets anymore.
What? Still got 10 minutes. I think the San Francisco 49ers are going D-line or edge with their first pick. And that is currently even money at stations. It's priced up a little bit now. A couple of reports are out there. Diana Rossini reporting that the 49ers plan to stick and pick, and they are looking to go edge. And also, Walter Nolan has been a name that you've just continued to hear. Peter Schrager put him there to San Francisco at 11. It's a name that you continue to hear to San Francisco. So I think even money for the first selection by the San Francisco 49ers to be a D lineman or an edge is bettable right now. And then I'll give you another one, JVT, that I think is bettable right now. It's moved a bunch, but I am not of the belief that Michigan corner Will Johnson is going to be selected very high. I was sitting at my desk earlier today, and I looked at his prop. It had moved from 13.5 to 18.5 over-under. And I was about to bet it again, and it moved to minus $2 to the over. Everything you hear about Will Johnson is that he could be sliding. Jahdae Barron, I don't know where ultimately he lands, JVT, but the question, the Texas defensive back, is there is a belief that the New York Jets apparently like him. Now, maybe 7 is too rich. I would say it is. You have got a bet that you're interested in regarding the Las Vegas Raiders and their possibility of taking a corner as well. So at DraftKings at minus 115 for Barron to be the second cornerback selected, I think at that price, even though you could have got plus money earlier today, I still think at minus 115 it's worth a look, and I bet that as well. So two draft bets that I did add today, and our best bets is always brought to you by G-Bank, the official bank of VSiN. What was the bet that you wanted to add from the Las Vegas Raiders, as you are very upset right now?
Well, because everything Raiders has been taken down.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, so DraftKings does not have up the Raiders when you look at the draft team specials in the AFC West, and FanDuel has all of the Raiders selections locked. So I don't know
what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't know if they've taken a rash.
Yeah, DraftKings has taken it down.
Yep. So
what's your
I would
gut
say,
tell you about that?
I mean, I would say again, maybe they just don't know what to do because running back has been the favored selection for them for a very long time. I never believed. But I would say that if you get the opportunity to bet it again, depending on where the odds go, I also think something interesting to play there was defensive back, or it used to be cornerback for the first selection. Their corner position is an absolute mess. And this is why it goes back to why I never really believed the Genty stuff, that you can't use a 6th overall pick on a running back when you need so much as a team. Your roster is barren. It does not have anything, especially on defense. You need to add. And so I think it makes a ton of sense if the Raiders, by all accounts, who are very willing to trade back and grab one of these corners that are going to be available to them. But they desperately need defensive back help. The last time I looked, it was plus 750. I think that's a potential thing to look at, especially if the odds are right for you. But again, can't find the odds.
All right, just a reminder, G-Bank is upping the ante, folks, with an up to a $750 bonus for new G-Bank Visa Signature Card customers. First, new customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from account opening receive a $250 bonus. In addition, if you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within 30 days of account opening, you'll receive another $500 bonus, potentially a $750 bonus right there. Apply now at VSiN.com/GBank, VSIN.com/GBank. Subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. I've got a lot of questions I want to pepper your way regarding the Raiders because I think they're very intriguing when it comes to this draft at
One
number
can make
6.
the argument that's where it starts.
Do you make that argument?
No, I think it starts at 4.
I do too. What do you think happens at 4?
So I think one of two crazy things could happen. One, it's actually Membu that goes instead of Will Campbell. Will Campbell. Just because, again, offensive line's kind of, as I put it, like the personal touch, right? Like, I think this guy fits better with us, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So
the reading that you hear from, I think it was McShay or whoever it was he talked to a bunch of different people around the league, and everyone else had a different, like, Membu won, Campbell won, Banks won.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that could be the shock where it's not everybody has put Campbell there. I think that could be a surprise. As I keep saying, I think the surprising long shot, dare we say, is Tyler Ward at number 4.
Woohoo!
Skill position player. They desperately need it. He's arguably the best skill position player that you're seeing in this draft right now. And I'm of the mindset.
Patriots get him or trade up?
I think either way, but I think the Patriots would be a very good fit. I mean, again, you go back to, I invoke this. I don't think it's apples to apples. But remember when the Bengals had the choice, Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell. And they went Jamar Chase. Skill position impact, I think, is much more important in today's NFL. If you can go and get a guy that could change it for your young quarterback, I think you do it.
50-1 right now at DraftKings. Tyler Warren to be the 4th overall pick. We'll dive into what we think could ultimately happen in the NFL draft. We'll let you get you updated on what's going on in Boston and Cleveland. NBA playoffs rolling along. It is VSiN Primetime.